Hey, it's Sandra. Welcome to another episode of Asexual, my asexual life. This is a place to be for education about asexuality, all things asexual. I share my own asexual life journey in order to help you in yours. If you haven't already subscribed, please hit the great big subscribe button right below this video right now. Please hit that bell icon to get notified of every time I go live right now, post a new video. And don't forget to give this video a thumbs up if you're enjoying the content as we go along, and share it with a friend. So if you don't know who I am Sandra Bellamy, author of this beautiful book, Asexual Perspectives, 47 Asexual Stories, Love, Life and Sex, a celebration of asexual diversity. I'm also the founder of asexualise.com and the founder of Asexualise Academy. Welcome to tonight's episode. So tonight's episode, I want to talk to you about what the difference is between someone who's asexual and someone who can't have sex, right? What is the difference? So if you're new to asexuality, you're confused, you don't really understand it, let me clear it up for you. Asexuality is a sexual orientation that is a lack of sexual attraction. This means, in general, we don't get the need, urge, or want for partnered sexual intercourse. This doesn't mean to say we can't have sex. This means to say that many of us don't want sex based on our sexual orientation, but some asexuals do want to try it. They do want to give it a go. They do want to participate. They will do it. Someone who can't have sex, the word can't means they can't physically do that, which would mean someone who's disabled or impotent, or obviously got some other problem in the genital area which stops them from having sex. So you've got, the asexuals aren't physically incapable of having sex. Obviously, some asexuals, however, do have a disability as well that may prevent them from having sex. So you can get some asexuals that lack sexual attraction. They don't get the need, urge, or want for partner sexual intercourse, and they also have a disability too. So I, for example, have fibromyalgia. Right? It would be very difficult these days for me to have sex with a guy because it hurts. Right? But it hurt before I even got diagnosed with fibro. Just my ex was very good at making me in the least amount of pain possible. But I found out I was asexual before I found out I had fibromyalgia. Well, not before I found out I had fibromyalgia, but before I found out my fibromyalgia was so bad in that area that I shouldn't be having sex because it probably hurt me. So my fibromyalgia diagnosis was in 2012. My asexual discovery is 2014. So I had it for a couple of years before then, but it's like nowadays it would probably be too painful. However, where there is a will, there is a way, I believe. But the fact is, because I'm asexual, I don't get the need, urge, or want for partnered sexual intercourse. And in my personal experience and my personal preference, I don't actually like sex. I don't want it. I don't need it. So I have no need for it, right? And I don't want it. Okay? But that's my choice. I've still got a choice. It's not, I can't physically, well, it is partly because I can't physically have it because I've got my disability, which is fibromyalgia. But do you know what I mean? It's still like, there are ways that I could possibly give it a try if I really, really wanted to. But it's going to hurt most likely. So I'm not going to do that. I don't want to do it. That's the whole point. But not wanting to is a choice. Not wanting to have sex is a choice. But asexuality isn't. It's a sexual orientation that's lack of sexual attraction. And the majority of asexuals, they don't want sex because of their orientation, because they don't get a need, urge, or want for it. Someone who can't have sex because they're impotent, got a disability, but they would have it if they could, is very different to being asexual. So asexuality isn't a sexual orientation where someone's abstaining or celibate. They're not choosing to not have sex because they're just choosing to abstain for a while, even though they experience sexual attraction, because they don't. Do you see what I'm saying? Asexuals don't experience sexual attractions. They're not choosing not to have sex and refrain from it for the reasons of celibacy and abstaining. They don't feel an innate desire, need, want, or urge for it. But physically, most asexuals could still do it if they wanted to try it, despite not wanting it innately, you know? There's not something they naturally would want. Okay, so I hope that's explained things for you. Like, asexuality is not a choice, it's our sexual orientation. However, an asexual can choose whether or not to have sex. Do you see what I mean? Whereas someone out who's abstaining or celibate, they are choosing to not have sex, but they still will get the need, urge, or want for it, unless they're an asexual that happens to be abstaining as well. So, so someone who can't have sex for other reasons such as impotency, disability, an accident they had, which would be a disability anyway usually, but if they've been, I don't know if they've been circumcised or something like that, and something happened, and they find sex too painful, or, you know, there's various reasons that it could happen, they can't have sex because they can't, not because of their asexuality or their sexual orientation. So the thinking is very different, and I want to make this clear. So I could potentially be in a relationship with a guy who's impotent. I don't get interested in women. I'm not attracted to women. So I could be with a guy, potentially with a guy who's not asexual, but who's impotent. I could potentially be with a guy who's got a disability, who can't have sex because their disability stops them from having sex, but who isn't asexual. Those are options I could consider. However, the mindset is very, very different between someone who's asexual and someone who can't have sex. And this is where things can be very difficult in the relationship if it's not established very early on that the circumstances in which these people aren't having sex is very different. One is because of their sexual orientation, that is who they are, it's in their soul and their being. And the other person is not having it even though they may want it, which may frustrate them and may cause them anguish and may cause them irritability. They may be very frustrated that they can't have sex because they'd really like it. And so you can imagine that the mindsets between these two people are very, very different. Like if I, for example, I'm a personally sex repulsed asexual, for me these days, don't mind other people having it. I'm happy for anyone to have it who likes it, enjoys it, and it's consensual. Great for them. Wonderful. I personally don't like it for me. I've had it in the past. I don't like it. I don't need it. I don't want it. Right? But if I was to be in a relationship, just hypothetically, which I'm not, if I was in a relationship, say, with someone who's impotent, that person could have loads of issues with their self-esteem around sex, with you know, an inability to perform. It could make them then feel bad about themselves. It can make them feel like, you know, they're feeling like they want to do something, but they can't, so they're still getting the urges. So obviously, the person who's impotent would have to sort those issues out in their mind so it didn't affect the relationship. Because same with someone who's disabled, they could still be getting all the sexual urges, you know, their behavior could still be very, very sexual. They could be, I'm not saying asexuals don't have sexual behavior, because some of us do, but, you know, I don't watch porn, for example. I could end up, you know, I don't want to be with someone who watches porn, but hypothetically speaking, that's my point, is if there was an impotent guy or a guy who was disabled and couldn't have sex, he might be looking at loads of porn because he can't, you know, have sex, so straightforward sex. So he might be getting thrills out of watching other people stripping off, out of watching other people have sex. He might be still longing for it. He might be looking at loads of sexual pictures and stuff, which to me, I wouldn't like that. I would find it disgusting because I don't like that type of thing. And I personally wouldn't want to be with a guy who was doing that. I wouldn't feel good, right? But they can't change their sexual orientation. And this is the main thing. Just because they can't have sex doesn't mean to say it changes their sexual orientation. It doesn't. I'm asexual. If I chose to have sex, which I don't want to get in my life, but if I chose to, that doesn't make me not asexual. Asexuality is my sexual orientation. That's a lack of sexual attraction. But someone who can't have sex because of a physical disability, impotency, or other, You know, they are frustrated often that they can't have sex. They want it and they feel bad about themselves. It creates a lot of low self-esteem. So they have a lot of issues. Now they can become very angry and very, you know, like frustrated and pent up and moody and stuff, which is not what you want in a relationship. I'm not saying everyone's like this. You know, what that person needs to do if they've got a disability or impotent and they can't have sex, is they need to come to terms with it themselves before getting into a relationship with you. They need to come to terms with the fact that they can't have sex, that their disability or their impotency stops them from having sex. Therefore, they need to look at alternative ways of getting physical pleasure. There's no reason why they can't still participate sometimes in other sexual acts if it's comfortable for them and they can do it. There's no reason why they can't work around certain things, you know? So it's a very different mindset. And I wanted to make this clear to you because I've been on some asexual dating sites, as you know. I've come across some people who aren't really asexual. They're impotent, which I would prefer someone to say that up front in their profile, but obviously it's very embarrassing for people sometimes. And, you know, I would prefer them really to say, you know, I'm not asexual, but I can't have sex for another reason. Do you know what I mean? I would prefer that. But, you know, and if they told me in the beginning, then it wouldn't be so bad. But some of these people, you kind of have to get it out of. And I do understand in a way because they might feel shamed. They might feel, you know, but it's also wrong in the sense that, you know, they're not being true with you if they're holding up the pretense that they are asexual because they're on that site when they're not. So there's something to be aware of. But, you know, I think there are a lot of people out there, excuse me, I'm going to have a drink. There are a lot of people out there that have got disabilities that can't have sex. There's a lot of people that are impotent that can't have sex. And, you know, that's an opportunity really for asexuals and those people to be able to foster loving, healthy, happy relationships without sex. You know, I've been on a site a long time ago and it basically, I saw these people talking, these women actually, and they're about, oh, this guy's impotent, you know, I love sex and he can't do it, you know, and they were being really horrible to the guys that were impotent. And I was thinking, you know, that's potentially a guy that I could be with theoretically if he was nice and the right type of person for me, or that some asexual could be with, you know. So while these people that are impotent are being put down in their life a lot of the time and they find it hard to find a partner, you know, it's kind of like waving a flag to them saying, hey, you know, asexuals are available and some of us don't mind being in a relationship with someone who's impotent or disabled and can't have sex because we can still love you without that. But there has to be some sort of acknowledgement on the sexual person's part, the one that can't have sex, that they are very different mindsets. You know, the sexual person has to accept that the asexual person, you know, they you know, it, by and large, they don't want sex. They don't need it. They don't like it. So if the sexual person has still got the mind of sex and, you know, maybe the sexual person wants to do a lot of other sexual stuff because they're frustrated, that's not a good reason to do it, if you know what I mean. You don't want someone who's moody and all that type of thing. You want someone who's come to terms with their impotency or disability, and you want them to know that they can still be loved, you know. And I do find it difficult because I do occasionally get some people who are coming into my asexual groups, they're applying and they're not actually asexual, but their disability stops them from having sex. And in a way, I kind of feel like there should be a group for asexual and people with disabilities that can't have sex. You know, there should be a mixture of asexuals and people that can't have sex because it might be good pairing for them. But obviously the difficulty with that is it's a completely different mindset. Like, say a person had sex loads before in their life and then they got this disability which means they can't have it anymore. Their brain and their mind doesn't switch off from wanting, needing sex, thinking sex is great, you know. And then if you've got an asexuals in the group saying, well, I hate sex, it's disgusting, it's horrible, it's horrific, why would anyone want to do that, it could kind of like be very difficult. Do you know what I mean? So I think there has to be a lot of understanding if you are going to enter that type of relationship. But I think it is a possibility. You've just got to remember there's a very big difference between someone's sexual orientation that makes them feel like they don't need or want sex or get an urge or desire for it, and someone who can't have sex but still deep down inside their soul is sexual. You know, they want, they need, they get the urge for sex, they just really can't have it, and it feels difficult for them. So I hope you found this really useful, helpful, insightful in some way. I hope it's shown you the difference between someone who's sexual, who is, you know, who is sexual but got impotency or got a disability and just can't have sex, and an asexual person whose sexual orientation means we don't get the need, urge, or want for sex in the first place. So I hope that's proved useful, helpful, insightful in some way. If it has, please give this video a thumbs up. I'd really love it, because it helped to raise awareness of asexuality. And, you know, if anyone's got any questions or comments, if you want to know anything more about asexuality, or if you want to know more about, you know, like differences between people who are asexual that don't want, need, or like sex, and those who just can't have sex, if you don't understand that, or if there's anything you need me to clarify, please put it down in the comments below. You can either put it in the chat now, or, you know, I can answer the question after this video at some other point. But it's really just very important to know the differences between someone who's asexual, who lacks sexual attraction. It's their sexual orientation, it's how they were most likely born but didn't realize it. They don't get the need, urge, want for partnered sexual intercourse. Sex isn't something that's usually on their mind. It's not something they think about. It's not something they, you know, internally desire. Whereas someone who can't have sex because they're impotent or disabled, it's like it doesn't change who they are. Their sexual orientation is still going to be sexual. If they're sexual, you know, they're still going to get the need, urge, or want for it, just not be able to have it. And that's a very, very big difference in approach, in mindset, in attitude, and between the two people. Do you see what I mean? So if you are in a situation where you're impotent or disabled and you're thinking about having a relationship, and you'll come across asexuals and you think, maybe I could be with an asexual person, and obviously asexuals are big-hearted people in general who can love without sex, you know, there's no reason why you can't explore that idea. But please, please, if you are disabled or impotent and you can't have sex and you're not asexual, please just be honest with asexuals. You know, no relationship ever is going to work out well for both people unless you're completely honest from the very, very beginning. You know, you need to be honest and upfront. Every successful relationship needs to be based on deep, ever friendship, trust. Okay, this is sexual relationships or asexual relationships. Sadly, a lot of sexual relationships are based on sex and sexual attraction and sexual lust first, and then everything else is unraveled later, and they haven't got the bestest ever friendship there, so things don't go right usually, and it goes rocky up and down all the time. So you need to foster a great deal of understanding. So if you are impotent or disabled, you know that it's possible that some asexuals might be able to be with you in a relationship and love you without sex, because we do love without sex. We don't need it. We can have a long-lasting, loving, healthy relationship, completely sex-free for all our lives. And it's good for us. We like it. We're happy, you know? But please be honest, you know? Always start off being honest with who you are. Say that you're not asexual. Say, I've got you know, something that prevents me from having sex. And be honest if you want to tell them, or if you want that to come out later on as to what the actual problem is, then, you know, when you trust the person more, fair enough. But be honest that you're not asexual if you're not asexual, because you have to be trustworthy from the get-go. If you're not trustworthy from the get-go, it won't work. There'll always be a degree of uncertainty there, of not trusting you. And it's very difficult for asexuals to trust sexuals. So if you're not asexual, you definitely can't have sex, right? Definitely not making up, not saying I can't have it for 3 months because I've had an accident. It's taken me 3 months to recover. I'm not on about that. I'm on like a long-term disability that prevents you from having sex, or impotency, which has been a long-term established problem for you. You know, I'm not on about something temporary. I'm on about some permanent, life-changing thing, you know. There's no reason why, you know, an asexual and sexual relationship in that instance might not work. But equally, you know, you're still coming from a very sexual mind point, a very sexual point of view, a very sexual mindset. And those are completely different things. So you have to be very upfront at the beginning, explain your situation, and discuss things. It would always have to be very open, honest communication. And you'd have to be able to understand that an asexual doesn't innately get the urge for or want sex. So a lot of asexuals will say things like, sex is disgusting, sex is gross, I don't like sex, I hate sex, it's horrible, ooh, who'd want to do that? Why would you want to look at that? You know, there are a lot of asexuals, not every asexual, some asexuals are fine. They don't say everything like that. They don't, you know, some asexuals won't be like that. There's a large percentage of us that will, because we just don't see a need for it. Some of us think it's quite gross, it's quite messy, it's quite unattractive, it's quite animalistic, and that's how we think differently to you, you know. So you have to be very sensitive, kind and caring person to be able to take that on board if you're not asexual and trying to understand our point of view. But a sexual point of view is not naturally like that. A sexual point of view is like, sex is great, it's part of human nature, it's right that we do it, it's what everyone wants to do, that's what you think, right? Which is obviously wrong, because I'm here talking to you, telling you I'm asexual and I don't like sex. I don't have a need, urge, want for it. I had it in the past because I thought I had to, and I'm so damn relieved I don't have to have it ever again in my life. I haven't had sex since 2011 and my life is so much better without it, you know. I don't want to go back to doing that again. I don't like it, don't need it, don't want it. It's not interesting to me, right? But kissing I do like, okay? So, you know, that's another thing. If you get an asexual that is very affectionate like me, I love kissing, you know, that can be very difficult if you're a sexual person, because if you're a sexual person, you can actually love the kissing and you'll, you know, like you would usually get turned on by that, right? You know, if you're a guy, you'd usually get an erection. And so obviously if you're impotent, you wouldn't usually get an erection, but, you know, maybe occasionally you might with someone. I don't know. But I have known people who said to me they're impotent or they can't usually get it up, but then every so often with someone comes along and they do. So that again, you know, what would happen if you were with an asexual person who never wanted sex in their life, and then all of a sudden you did get the erection and you're like, oh my God, I've been impotent like for years, and like, oh my God, this person's come along and all of a sudden I've got this erection. What do I do with it now? And obviously the asexual's not going to change their sexual orientation if they don't want sex, because it's not innately inbred into them. They don't want it, they don't need it. Then what are you going to do then? Are you going to stay with the asexual person, or are you going to leave them because you realize you can get it up sometimes? Or are you going to talk to the asexual about it to see if they can work something out? But if you know they definitely don't want sex, then you can't push them, because that would be obviously sexual abuse if you try to push yourself on an asexual who doesn't want sex, right? You have to understand that we don't naturally want sex. It doesn't come naturally, right? So you don't ever do something to an asexual who doesn't want it. If we say no, we mean no. It's not because we don't care about you, not because we don't love you, not because we don't want you in a relationship, but we don't see sex as needed in a relationship. Full stop. We just don't see it. It doesn't happen. We don't actually need it. Asexuals do not need sex at all in their life to survive. We survive and thrive without it. We come alive. But your benefit of being with an asexual person is you're getting very, very deep emotional connection, usually more deeper than the average heterosexual relationship, I'd say, because asexuals love in an emotional, connected way. Because we're not loving you through sexual attraction, because there's no sexual urge, need, or want there, we are literally loving you with a deeper emotional connection, and that takes priority over every other type of connection with you, right? Whereas with sexuals, usually heterosexuals, your primary instinct when you see someone, especially if they're aesthetically good looking, is you know, you're sexually attracted to the person, whereas we don't look and think like that. It's a completely different mindset. Do you see what I mean? You know, and if you've got a disability, you know, what happens if something does change? What happens if you recover from your disability one day? Are you going to leave the asexual person? I mean, what if you are disabled, but you love doing other sexual things? And some asexuals, they don't like doing any sexual sex acts whatsoever. You know, they don't want any of that. So again, all this has to be talked through. Don't presume that an asexual will want to be in a relationship with you. But I just wanted to put this video out there because there are some people I've seen who are impotent guys, and they are really upset and in a lot of pain that no one will love them without sex. And they don't even know about asexuals. They've never come across asexuality before. you know, they're very depressed, they're very upset because they literally think they can't be loved without sex. They can't please a woman sexually, so they are really upset and in a lot of pain. And I want them to know, I want to reach out to those guys, or even women can be impotent. I want to reach out to those people and say there are asexuals that can love you without sex. I'm not saying every asexual is going to love you without sex. I'm not saying any asexuals are going to love you without sex, but I say it is possible they could, right? It's possible that I could, because I don't care about sex. I'm not interested in sex. But I could not be with a guy who's sexual in every other way, because my brain doesn't work like that. I don't like it. If a guy was sat there watching porn but he can't have sex, it would no good to me, because I find porn disgusting. It puts me off the guy who's watching it, you know? I find porn disgusting, so I find a guy who does that, personally for me, not every asexual is like this, because some asexuals even look at porn. Personally for me, it makes me disgusted. I don't want to be with a guy who's going around looking at that. It doesn't feel good to me. It's like, why do you need to do that? Because my mindset is asexual. It's coming from an asexual viewpoint, not a sexual one. So you have to understand it's completely different. Completely different mindsets. You're coming from totally different angles. So please, if you can't have sex, know that there are asexuals that innately don't get the urge or want for sex, and that's their sexual orientation. They're not like you, who's in a position where you can't have sex. They're in a position where they don't want it. And you must always respect the fact. You mustn't try and change an asexual. You mustn't try and do anything to fix them. It's not something that can fix. We've not got a disease. We've not got an illness. There's nothing wrong with us. It's our sexual orientation. Just like yours is your sexual orientation. You know, you're not going to change yours, because you are who you are. We're who we are as well. But I just wanted to throw this video out there so that any person who can't have sex for any reason, if they're disabled or impotent, know there is other options available out there as possibilities. Because I don't like to see people in pain. I don't like to see guys or girls in pain. I don't like to see, you know, like on this website that I saw, there was a lot of women who were moaning about guys that were impotent, right? And I just felt sorry for the guys that women were talking about. And I understand that women are too, which is very taboo, have really big sexual appetites. I know women in person that love sex. They adore it. And if a man can't give them what they want, they will go elsewhere and get it. Or they won't want to be with a guy in the first place, you know, if he's not giving them good sex. It's just the way it is in life. It's not just men that go after sex, it's women that go after sex. In fact, women, some of the women I knew, they would do anything. They don't care if the guy's married, got a girlfriend. I personally think that's wrong. I don't agree with that. But you know, this is what happens in the real heterosexual world, if you know what I mean. Sometimes, in some cases, you know, I also know women that are very faithful that would never ever do that, you know. And even if they're single, they would not go with married men or people that are in relationships. They don't believe in that either, you know. But please just understand that if you are impotent or got a disability that prevents you from having sex, or you can't have sex, I do sympathise and I do empathise with you. And I do want you to know there are lots of asexuals out there, and it is possible that one of us may be able to have a relationship with you. So I don't want you sitting there depressed for the rest of your life thinking every single person in the world needs to have sex, because that is literally what I thought. Before I found out I was asexual, I thought I was the only person in the world that literally didn't want sex. And there are thousands of asexuals. So it's a good thing. Anyway, thank you so much for the thumbs up. Thank you for listening. It's been an absolute pleasure tonight, as always. If you do like this video and you haven't given it a thumbs up yet, please give me a thumbs up. If you want to subscribe, it'd be awesome to have you as part of my community. Down here below, click the button now to subscribe, the big red button, and hit that bell icon to get notified of every time I go live like that, I'll post a new video. Don't forget, I usually live stream every night I start between the hours of 11 p.m. and 12 p.m. British time. So that's GMT time. It varies a little bit because I have to do a lot of other work and sometimes it overrides, but I always do it before midnight. So anyway, I'll look forward to seeing you in the next live stream or video. Until next time, brace your quirky and each other's, and I will see you on this video or live stream. And thanks for the thumbs up. Take care. Thanks for tuning in. Really nice to see you. Bye-bye. Bye.